All right, guys, let's look at the short constructed response assignment for instructional cycle 5. We're calling this the modernism short constructed response. First thing I want to note is that below you will see 3 prompts. You only have to write on one of them. All right, for this assignment, it is a short constructed response. Therefore, you are just writing one paragraph, so you're just going to answer one of the prompts below. So in that paragraph, it needs to be a paragraph. So we want, 5 to 8 well-developed sentences. You need to make sure that you're paying attention to the question and answering the question. You need to make sure in that paragraph that you use some specific cited textual evidence from one of the short stories that we will read in the week leading up to this assignment. And you need to demonstrate an understanding of grammar and syntax. We don't want grammatical errors that distract from the message because we get bogged down in grammatical errors. All right, your mini lesson before this assignment is about making sure that you are responding to the prompt given. In the prompts below, you're asked to take a stance. You're asked to pick a side and defend some kind of a stance. It's persuasive type writing. In this type of writing, especially for the EOC or some kind of standardized testing, you want to make sure that you pick the side, you pick the stance that's easiest for you to defend, and then you stick with it. Even though in your mind you're like, well, I could argue this and I could argue that, I can see both sides, and that's great that you can see both sides, but you need to stick to one side in your defense. What EOC graders want to see is that you can recognize that there are differing opinions out there. And they want you to do that through the use of counter argument, like one sentence that recognizes the opposition. However, the rest of your writing needs to defend the point that you pick from the beginning. And it's okay if you don't totally agree with what you're writing. If in your mind you're going, well, I could see it this way, I could see it that way, you need to stick to one topic, to one side of the story, and use the evidence from whatever you're provided with. In this case, a short story. You need to use what you were provided with and find specific evidence to defend whatever stance you take from the beginning. Often these are timed, all right? This kind of writing is in a time situation, so you just need to pick a side and go with it, and it's fine. It's okay if by the end of it you're like, I wish I would have picked the other side. You just need to stick with it in a timed situation. All right, so let's look at what the prompts are. So I said we're reading 3 short stories, and so there's a prompt for each one. The first one is about the worn path. And what it's asking you to do is decide whether or not Aunt Georgiana, one of the characters in the play, whether or not it was a positive experience for her to go to this concert. A Wagner matinee is the concert. She went to hear some, classical music being played during the day. That's what a matinee is. So was it a positive experience for her to go to that concert? And you have to explain why or why not. All right, you got to pick a side. It's okay to recognize why some people might say that it was positive. However, and then you talk about why it wasn't positive. So you got to make sure you take a stance there. All right, the next one is related to a worn path. So this is about heroes. So what comes to mind when you think about a hero? And then you're asked to determine the characteristics of Phoenix, one of the main characters in A Worn Path. Determine how she is like a hero and how she is unlike a hero. And then a typical hero. So you have to, where you're taking your stance here is when you're defining what a typical hero is. All right. And then you have to explain how Phoenix fits into that definition of a typical hero, or how she does not fit into that definition of a typical hero. And then this last one is related to the Inside Search. The Inside Search is a chapter from a larger autobiography. In the chapter, there are some white women who are helping out our character, Zora Neale Hurston, who is the writer. It's her autobiography. So they're helping her out, but readers tend to see them as condescending and like patronizing to her. So, meaning their generosity carries with it, this reminder that they are in power and they have a higher social standing than she does, and they get to decide who is worthy of receiving kind of the benefits of society. So you have to decide, do you agree with this viewpoint of these women being, condescending to the character? Do you agree with that? And that's what's happening in the story. Or do you not agree with that? Do you think that, do you think the opposite of that they were actually just being nice people? And so you have to decide what you believe and how you can defend it. And this one, you really need to think about how you can defend it. You need to think specifically like, well, maybe I think this, but actually this one's easier to defend, so I might write about this one. And that's okay in this type of writing, to write, opposite of what you might actually believe to be true. You have to write about the one that's easier to prove. Okay? And now I don't mean that as in your life in general, but I just mean that in this type of writing. If you have questions about this, make sure that you're coming to class the week prior to this assignment being due, because we'll go over each one of these stories and give some time to work on the writing assignment also.